We were going in the next morning. That night I wrote a letter, but I didn't send it, because that letter could have been the last one, and I wasn't ready to send the last one. William Hatch, the night of June 5th, 1944, the final hours before D-Day. A letter written that night and never sent. He carried it in his bag for 4 years. December 1941, Dayton, Ohio. William Hatch was 23 years old. He worked in a factory, lived in a small apartment, had a fiancée named Margaret. They had plans to marry in May, when the flowers were out. Then Pearl Harbor happened. He was drafted in January 1942. Training started in February. In April, he boarded a ship. Margaret saw him off. At the station, it was crowded. Everyone was saying goodbye to someone. Margaret wasn't crying, she was holding it back. William could see that, and he held it back too. The train moved. William looked out the window. Margaret got smaller, disappeared into the crowd. The train went around a bend. Margaret was gone. William opened his bag, pulled out a small notebook, and wrote, January 1942, the train has moved. Margaret was at the station. She didn't cry. Neither did I. Maybe we should have. He wrote for 4 years, from one front to the next, from everywhere, and Margaret waited, looking at the mailbox every day.
During the Second World War, the American Military Postal Service used a system known as V-mail. Letters were photographically reduced and transferred to microfilm before being transported by ship. The system saved both space and weight on cargo vessels. Censorship was applied to every letter. Military censors reviewed all correspondence and removed location details, unit names, and operational information. These restrictions shaped what soldiers were able to say. What couldn't be said became perhaps the most significant dimension of the letters themselves.
August 1942, Guadalcanal. When Hatch arrived on that island, he didn't know what to expect. He had what training had given him. Reality was different. The jungle was dense. The humidity was suffocating, and the Japanese were everywhere. After the first engagement, Hatch sat down at the base of a tree. His hands were shaking. He couldn't stop them. He pulled paper from his bag. He started writing to Margaret. Dear Margaret, I'm here. I'm fine. The weather is very hot. The food isn't great, but I'm getting by. I'm thinking of you. He stopped, read it back. What he had written was true, but it wasn't complete. His hands were still shaking. He couldn't write that. There were things he had seen beside someone. He couldn't write those either. Just, I'm thinking of you. He sealed the envelope. But that night, sleep wouldn't come. When his eyes closed, different things came. The things he had wanted to write, the things he couldn't. In the morning he got up, picked up his rifle, went back into the jungle, and that evening he wrote again. That was how every day went. A letter every day. Sometimes half a page, sometimes a single line. But he wrote, because writing made Margaret feel present, even from this far away.
The letters exchanged between soldiers and their families during wartime represent an important source of both psychological and sociological documentation. Research shows that writing letters at the front served both as a stress-reducing function and as a way of keeping the connection to home alive. But censorship significantly constrained what could genuinely be communicated. The great majority of soldiers like Hatch never put their heaviest experiences into writing. This silence was both a protective instinct and a reflection of not wanting to cause unnecessary worry to the people they loved.
June 1944, Normandy. Hatch wrote a letter before the landing. This was different. He always wrote afterward, once things had happened. But this time he wrote first. It was the early hours of the morning. The boat hadn't moved yet. There was silence all around. It wasn't a real silence. Everyone knew what was coming, but nobody was talking. Hatch pulled out the paper, wrote, Dear Margaret, by the time you read this, everything will be over, one way or the other. But if you're reading it, then somehow we're still going. There are things I've wanted to say to you. I always meant to say them. I was going to say them in May. Then it got postponed. I'm writing them now because sometimes writing is easier than speaking. He stopped. He couldn't continue. He sealed the envelope, put it in his bag, didn't drop it in the post. Carter beside him looked over. "What are you writing?" he asked. "Something," Hatch said. Carter understood. He didn't ask again. The boat moved. Hatch never sent that letter. He carried it until the end of the war. Once he opened it, read it, closed it, put it back in his bag. Margaret never saw that letter. Maybe that was for the best.
It is well documented that many soldiers wrote what might be called a last letter before D-Day. Some of these were never sent, others were left to be delivered in the event of death. The psychology literature shows that writing in this way served both as a way of managing anxiety and as a way of creating a sense of control. Hatch's decision not to send his letter, whether conscious or not, was something many soldiers did. Carrying the things that couldn't be said is one of the least visible but heaviest dimensions of the war experience.
December 1944, the Ardennes, the Battle of the Bulge. Cold, cold above everything else. Hatch was sitting in a foxhole. Snow, wind, and German tanks pushing forward. That day he didn't write, for the first time. The next day he didn't write either. On the third day he wrote one line. "Dear Margaret, I'm still here." That was all. He sealed it, sent it. When Margaret received that letter, she held it for a long time. Just one line. But that one line was everything. Still here, alive, writing, thinking of me. Every single one of the one-line letters from those days Margaret kept separately, in a special box, apart from the others. Because the one-line letters were the heaviest ones, the ones that said the most with the fewest words. The Bulge passed. Hatch pushed forward, crossed into Germany, and he started writing longer letters again, as if he were making up for the silence of December. In one of them, he wrote, "I wrote very little in December. I'm sorry for that. In those days, I couldn't find the words. I can find them now. But December is still sitting somewhere without them."
The Battle of the Bulge ran from December 1944 to January 1945. Winter conditions were brutal. Temperatures dropped as low as -20 degrees Celsius, causing significant frostbite casualties. The Military Postal Service experienced disruptions during this period. Some letters took weeks to arrive. For families waiting at home in uncertainty, this stretch was psychologically extremely difficult. On both the front and the home front, Hatch's one-line letters capture the spirit of those days precisely.
May 1945. The war was over. Hatch was sitting in a tent in Germany, enemy soil, and the war was over. He wrote a letter. "Dear Margaret, it's over. It's really over. I can't fully describe what I'm feeling right now. Joy? Maybe. But the exhaustion comes first. 4 years of exhaustion. Sometimes I think, when I come home, will it be me that comes? Or will it be someone different from the man who left?" He stopped, read it back. He couldn't send it. It was too much. Margaret had waited 4 years. She was expecting good news. Could this letter be called good news? He tore it up, wrote again. "Dear Margaret, it's over. I'll be home soon. I've missed you." He sent that one. But he took the torn letter out of his bag, smoothed it out, folded it back up, and put it away. Because that letter was real too. Maybe more real. Like so many men coming home from that war, Hatch was two men now. The man who had written letters to Margaret, and the man who had never appeared in those letters. Both of them came home, but only one was visible. The other one was at the bottom of the bag, on a torn piece of paper.
The great majority of soldiers returning from the Second World War were never able to fully communicate their war experiences to their families. There were several reasons for this silence. A protective instinct, the difficulty of putting it into words, and the absence of any adequate language were among the primary ones. Research shows that the adjustment difficulties many veterans of this generation experienced at home were partly rooted in this gap in communication. Men like Hatch belonged to both the front and the home. The bridge between the two was the letters, but the letters could never be a complete bridge.
Hatch came home. June 1945. Back to Ohio. Back to Dayton. Margaret was waiting. They met at the station 4 years later. At first, neither of them knew what to say. They had written letters to each other for 4 years, but face to face, the words didn't come straight away. Then Margaret laughed, a short, sudden laugh. Hatch laughed too, and they talked. For hours, not everything, but a lot. They got married. September 1945. The flowers were long gone. It wasn't May anymore, but they got married. Years passed. They had children, grandchildren. The letters sat in a box. Margaret had kept all of them, 47 letters, in chronological order, each one still in its envelope. Once Hatch came across that box, picked it up, looked at it. "Did you read them all?" he asked Margaret. "Every one of them more than once," she said. Hatch put the box down, stayed quiet for a long time. "There were things I couldn't write," he said. "I know," Margaret said. "How?" Hatch asked. Margaret thought about it. "Because some of the gaps were too big. The gaps say something too."
Wartime letters are extraordinarily valuable primary sources for historians today. They preserve individual experiences that official history cannot reach. Thousands of letters like Hatch's sit in American archives and private collections. In recent years, the digitization of these letters and their analysis in academic research has significantly enriched the writing of war history. What was said in those letters matters, but so does what was left unsaid.
Hatch died in 1998 in Ohio, at home. Margaret died in 2003 in the same house. When their children were clearing the house, they found the box. 47 letters, dates written on the envelopes. Guadalcanal, Normandy, Ardennes, Germany. The eldest son read them all, everyone, in a single night. In the morning, he turned to his siblings. "I never really knew my father," he said. He wasn't wrong, but he wasn't entirely right either, because the man in those letters was also his father, just a different version of him, younger, more frightened, more alone, and more honest. Because even in the letters, he couldn't be fully honest, and without the letters, he had never spoken of any of it at all. The eldest son kept the letters, along with the box, and every November, on the anniversary of the war's end, he reads one, at random, whichever date comes out. Sometimes it's one from Guadalcanal, sometimes from Normandy, sometimes a single-line letter from December. "Dear Margaret, I'm still here." When he reads that one line, he always pauses, because everything is in that one line. 4 years, 47 letters, and in every one of them, the distance between what was said and what wasn't. War history is mostly told through battles, fronts, strategies, ground taken and ground lost. But war has another front too, the front of the mailbox. An envelope waited for every morning, words written every evening, and the weight carried in every line. Hatch fought for 4 years. He wrote letters for 4 years. Which front was heavier? Maybe both weighed exactly the same.
The legacy of wartime letters is receiving increasing recognition today. Museums and archives around the world are working to preserve them. Letters like Hatch's are part of both individual and collective history. What they give us that official history cannot is the voices of the people who were alive in that moment. What they said and their silences. A letter is sometimes the most accurate historical document of all, because it was written in that moment, for that moment.